will be giving some presentations and updates as to zoning and the prevailing wage, and also regarding the public school system. So I know we were trying to have a meeting. However, since the new restrictions, we decided to just do another virtual meeting. But I thank all our speakers, and also I thank you all, our members, for staying with us, keeping updates. And if there are any organizations or agencies that you would like for us to have as guest speakers, we can reach out to them. So please contact Maxine or anybody of our staff so that we can keep updated during this time. And please keep safe. And I will turn it over to Maxine so we can get started. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much, President Palacios. We're really grateful for our speakers today. First, we're going to have our new zoning administrator, Dela Cruz. After her presentation, we're going to have Dr. Ada giving updates from the public school system. And then after that presentation, we are going to have Director Andrew and Mr. Will Maui giving updates about the prevailing wage survey. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our new zoning administrator, Jerry. And just as a reminder for everyone, if you have questions that come up during the presentations, please privately message me or message all in the chat, and then that's how we'll administer the question and answers portion of our GML today. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jerry.
Well, thank you, Maxine, and thank you again to the Saipan Chamber of Commerce for giving me this opportunity to speak in today's general membership meeting. First, let me introduce myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Geralyn Dela Cruz, known as Jerry, and I'm currently the zoning administrator for the Commonwealth Zoning Board. I lead a team of about 7 individuals whose primary role is really to administer and enforce Saipan's land use and zoning system, which is really designed to protect the interests of our community in many different ways. We are governed by a 7-member board appointed by the governor. Today's board is led by our chairwoman, Mrs. Tatiana Babalta, Vice Chair Frank Uggan, our treasurer is Perry Enos Jr., our secretary is Joe Azuzu Jr., and Mr. Kevin Guerrero. Today's presentation I really wanted to discuss the recent changes to the Saipan zoning laws. So I have a brief presentation that I prepared for you, so if I can share that with you all. Give me a second. Is that good? Can you guys see it? Okay. So this is kind of like, I just prepared this just for everybody to kind of get a glimpse of what zoning is really all about. So to kind of talk about how zoning really started, it really was in existence since 1989, where the 6th legislature created this Commonwealth Zoning Board with the intention of really regulating land use in Rota, Saipan, and Tinian. However, I think only Saipan really came about. And in 1993, we had our first zoning law. And, this law is forever changing up until today, as you can see. The Saipan zoning law of 2013 was recently amended in July, enacted in July 2020, to include changes of everything that kind of took place over a 5-year span from 2013 to 2018. Interestingly speaking, not many are familiar with the way zoning law evolves. And just for information, the jurisdiction of zoning is really with the Saipan and Northern Islands Legislative Delegation, or SNILE. They are the only ones that have the authority to make changes to the law. So anytime a correction or any ideas for improvement or efficiency of zoning in Saipan, it must be done legislatively. But today, the office and the board really administers the Saipan zoning law for any improvements that's done in Saipan, Bird Island, Forbidden Island, and Minnegaha. So with the recent amendments of the Saipan Zoning Law of 2013, these are some of the changes, which might be of interest to the business community. So one of them is the table of uses. So Article 4 of the law really depicts all the different uses that are allowed in Saipan. And once we get everything ready, we're going to have the law published, and of course give to Saipan Chamber of Commerce to distribute to the members. But it includes different uses that have come up over the years, and it also mentions or includes the newest industry here in the CNMI, which is cannabis. So because zoning is really only in Saipan, we can only enforce zoning for cannabis in Saipan. When it comes to Rota and Tinian, that's the municipality, I guess, that will take care of that. But we're still we're still in the process of changing and improving zoning for cannabis in Saipan. Also, one of the changes in the amendments for the table of uses was reclassification of allowable uses. So for example, some uses used to be automatically permitted in zoning districts. Say you are on Beach Road and you want to open up a business that does any kind of use, say, I don't know, something that was permitted. So before, there may be times where you just come in and get a zoning application, but after review of the board and public comments and whatnot, they changed it, and there's some uses that are now conditional uses. Now, conditional uses are, it's still permitted, however, they must be heard and approved by the board. So now with regard to cannabis also, anything relative to cannabis in today's law and the amendments, whether it's retail, lounge, farming, they are conditional use in certain zoning districts. So they have to go before the board. So those are some of the changes. In plan developments, previously when the office receives plans or assesses for development, whether it be residential, if you have a palapala, if you have a, that's considered multiple buildings. But it's been changed to say, as an accessory versus an actual building. So those are just some of the stuff that have come up since the Saipan Zoning Law of 2013 was done. Other changes include setbacks. So residential lot requirements, previously, they were mostly in duplex or townhomes. You used to have, you have to have 1,000 square meters in order to have a duplex, but they've been revised to reflect reasonable uses. So for example, all you need is like a 400 square meter lot and you can build a townhome. So that's residential lot requirements. As far as sidewalks and landscaping, the changes that happen in the law were mostly in the industrial zones. So previously, if you were to construct something in an industrial zone, you have to have sidewalks of this width and whatnot. So the amended law of 2013 changes that for more reasonable uses. Changes in height structures. So that one was done mostly in the Garapan core districts, Garapan East and tourist resort districts, where you can increase the height of your development if you include a structured parking. Now we know, parking is really an issue, is a challenge for us here. So that was included in the zoning law now, so that you can increase height max if you have a structured parking. Then also changes were in the height of signs. So ground signs were increased in height of course, in the areas, again, of Garapan Core, Garapan East, and tourist resorts. And then what was also changed was in farming. Previously, if your residential home is in a village residential zone district, you can't do any farming. So what was changed was that they included small scale farming for subsistence farming in village residential areas. And then another change, or one of the last changes that I'm going to talk about, is the auto rental offices. So, you know, again, you know, coming into the office, this work was done by the previous administrator and the board and the community and the legislature. So one of the things that were included was the auto rental offices in the areas in the districts of Garapan Core, Garapan East, and tourist resorts. So today in those areas, you would have rental car companies with their hundreds of cars. And, you know, in conversation with the legislature, you know, they brought up issues of traffic, of, you know, cars coming in and out. So today, the zoning law, in these areas, you can only have a car rental office with your storage or storing your vehicles at a different site in a different zoned area. So this passed. So yeah, these are just some of the highlights of changes or amendments to the Saipan Zoning Law of 2013. Again, you know, this law is constantly changing. In fact, today, you know, I'm currently working with the legislature and other agencies, you know, in some revisions that were not included that we feel is critical for Saipan. Some of the initiatives that the office is doing at the moment, or, you know, is we're collaborating with other regulatory agencies to streamline permit process. You know, the ultimate goal is to really have, you know, one permit, one stop. And I think this is something that has been shared and brought up many times. In my capacity and, you know, in other regulatory agencies previously. So the ultimate goal is to have a one-stop shop. But, you know, we know it's a long shot, but we need to start somewhere. And, you know, we're working with other agencies to see how we can, you know, take steps towards that. Another initiative that we're currently doing is accessibility to zoning map districts. You know, this is I think is really important because we've come across several applications where, you know, a land has been leased or you know, an investor leased a land for their particular investment. And when they come to zoning to get their permits, you know, to do that, that use is not allowed. So, you know, the investor is just they're caught off guard. So, you know, we want to see ways that we can make it accessible to investors where or anybody, if they were to purchase land or lease land for investment, that they ensure that that investment or that use is allowed in those areas prior to any purchase. We don't have any real estate regulatory board today, but, you know, I don't know if that's a start that we need to do sometime. But that's one of the challenges we see with our clients coming in. Another initiative that is, you know, is really a huge undertaking is the administration of the Nuisance Abatement and Blighted Properties Act. This was done, I believe, in 2018. We all know that it is necessary, but, you know, it's a huge undertaking, and we are trying to see what we can do with our limited staff and resources to see how we can really go in and administer and enforce this law. But yes, this is something that is important for us, but it's needed. You know, now is the time. In my opinion, you know, we are at a time where we don't have. I mean, we don't have any tourism that's coming in, and many times, you know, a lot of the projects and stuff couldn't be done because, you know, everybody's focus is really bringing in tourism to our islands because that's what drives our economy. But, you know, now is the time for us to really look back, and which kind of like brings me to the next my last slide actually is, where do I see zoning in the CNMI in the future, or, how can we improve it? But, I think, like I said, now is the time to assess, for us to all come together and assess the various types of businesses, uses, and development in Saipan. And, maybe even start a plan for Rhoda and Tinian and, get them involved so that they don't end up in a position where they're going to be, be in a point where they cannot handle. We need to plan for sustainable development. Do we want more hotels? Do we want more luxury retail shops? Do we want more recreational uses? I think it's important for the CNMI again to assess, the impact on our current infrastructure and whether or not it has the capacity for future development. Do we need to upgrade? Do we need to, those are just things that I thought about on seeing how we can work together as a community, whether it's government and, and the private sector, to really plan for improving the CNMI. Yeah, and that's really all I have for you guys today. So I guess we can take questions now. I think you have to unmute your.
Maxine, you're still on mute.
What? No worries. Sorry, we were just transferring host.
Hey, I have a question.
Sure. Is it to me? How does it work, Maxine?
Yes, for you, Jerry. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. Adam.
Hey, am I getting out of line here? Sorry, folks.
Go ahead, Dr. Adam.
So, Jerry, communication is one of the things in in PSS is really important, and everything is right now is being shared electronically. So, I don't know how to frame the question, but how can we get the zoning to allow some of the schools to put up signboards, electronic signboards, as a mean of communication with the community? I've been informed that it's a very tedious process, but I need some guidance. Do you think you can help us?
What do you mean by electronic signboards? Like the one that we have at ITNE?
Yeah. Okay, the ITNE signboard?
Yes, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, so we wanted to put one at MHS, one in Tanapak Middle School, just to the roadside, to inform the community of current events or things like that. And also one in the Cagman area. I see signboards all the time, but when I inquired about putting the electronic signboard, I was informed that it's very, very tedious. So anyway, if you can make it painless as possible for the school system to do that, it's, in their campus. It won't be outside the gate. It will be inside the campus.
Okay. Dr. Ada, if you could give me give me some time, allow me to go back to the law and see, what are the regulations for electronic signboards? And, of course, given our current situation with the pandemic, this is something that we can bring up to the board. And if they have the authority to change in that manner, if it's regulations, then we can do that. If not, then we can work to see how we can make the change. But I don't see. Of course, we're gonna have to manage or control the messages that are being sent. There's regulations on selling your product and stuff like that. Of course, we have those are the things that we're going to have to look at. But if you can allow me some time to look at it, and I'll get back to you. Hopefully, maybe Maxine can share your email, or if you want, I can send it to her and she can shoot it out to the rest of the chamber members so that everybody can get the message.
Yes. Okay, great. And maybe the Chamber of Commerce can sponsor one of those electronic signs. What do you think?
That's a wonderful idea, Dr. Ada. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for starting the day off with your wonderful presentation. And thank you, Dr. Ada, for your first question. I'm actually getting a lot of questions. You are a popular lady, which they're all like really wonderful. So thank you so much, members, for submitting your questions. The first, you did a great job summarizing what your vision was for the zoning board moving forward. What is a good way that businesses can provide input to continue to be a part of that planning process, specifically for sustainable development? They understand that the Office of Planning Development is working on sustainability. You had mentioned that SNILE also has a legal entity, but if businesses wanted to provide their own input and ways that they think that could help zoning and help the CNMI in general, how would you suggest they go about that process of engaging with zoning?
You know, for me, I've always managed in such a way where, you know, I have an open door policy. Anybody can come in. So I would love to hear whatever recommendations that the business community has, you know, of course, through, I guess, membership through Chamber of Commerce. You know, maybe I can make it I can commit to participating in these monthly meetings or, you know, but anytime any business community member has recommendations on how to improve, you know, zoning in the CNMI, I would love to, whether it be a sit down meeting, whether it be an email or any type of correspondence. And if it's communication with the board or SNILE, we can work together to, you know, to see how, you know, we can, you know, make it happen.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for offering that, Jerry. And I think there are a lot of them that have a lot of ideas, and I think that they want to move from the place instead of just complaining about how things are, like how can they help. So maybe offline after this, we can talk about maybe scheduling a meeting. We also have our Sustainable Economic Development Committee. So maybe that would be a way that we could just have a committee meeting with you. So that's a great follow-up. The next question, we're getting a few questions about cannabis. Have you gotten a lot of applications for cannabis operators, whether they're retail or for farm or for lounge?
Yes, we have had a large number, maybe not large. I mean, that actually is the new business today. So if you were to ask me what are the new businesses that are coming into, you know, requesting for zoning applications, it's in the cannabis industry. And it goes from, I mean, it ranges from farming to retail and, you know, other uses. But, you know, one of the things that we're working with the Cannabis Commission on also is that when the zoning law was amended, they only included 3 uses, which is cannabis farming, retail, and lounge. So anything outside of farming, retail, or lounge is not allowed through zoning. So those are some of the challenges that we came across. So we're working with the legislature now because we need to iron this out because we want this industry to you know, to take off. You know, we see that this might be, you know, a revenue generating initiative for the CNMI. So those are, yes, we've had several applicants that have come in inquiring for zoning in different aspects of cannabis. But this is where we now have come across all the challenges, you know, and I think you know, we've been working really close with them, with the commission, with the Cannabis Commission, and with SNILE to see how we can iron out those issues. Did I answer that?
You did. Thank you so much. And I just want to, just before, there are a lot of people that are asking really, really great questions, but I do want to be sensitive to our time frame today for the GMM. If I don't answer your question, I'll just follow up with Jerry offline, just more for the members. If when I don't get to their questions, we can follow up with Jerry offline and continue the conversation, maybe if that's
Yes,
okay, Administrator.
absolutely. Absolutely, Maxine, if you want, put it all in an email, send it to me, and I'll make sure that I answer those questions, send it back to you, and you can forward it to everybody.
Perfect.
So that,
I'm going to try for 2 more questions though.
Okay.
Has there been a fee increase for any of the zoning applicants? And if there hasn't been, is there a planned fee increase?
no, there has been no fee increase based on based on my understanding. The fees have always been the same. Is it time for a fee increase? I don't think so, personally. I want to see the CNMI recover, and from our economic situation today. And I don't think that increasing fees is going to help that. We at zoning, we continue to do our enforcement. And when we cite certain violations, if they're minor, meaning they were really innocent about it, and we give them time to correct it. If they don't correct it, then we assess a fine. For today's world, this we all have to kind of pitch in, to help the CNMI recover. And I honestly don't think that now is the right time to increase fees. And like I said, most of our inquiries in the office is with cannabis. So this is an industry that hasn't even started. We don't want to increase any fees. We want to make sure that people are able to start a business and be profitable from it. And 2, we have a lot of business license renewals. So now we're seeing that people are trying to continue their business. So we don't want to make it hard for them. So I think with the fees that we currently have, we're able to sustain our operations today.
Thank you so much, Jerry. And my final question kind of moves in that direction as well. So that's one way that you would be helping businesses, is at least by not increasing fees. There have been a few ideas that have come up about maybe some leniency in like posting road signs, like finding other ways to allow businesses to advertise during this time. Are there any other ways with the zoning, other than not increasing fees, are there any other ways that the zoning is considering or brainstorming how to help businesses during this time?
Well, I think like I mentioned in my previous question, in my previous answer, is one of the ways that we help businesses is, we try not to assess fines on violations that minor violations. As far as business license renewals and stuff, I mean, we need to make sure that our office operations continues, and it's through the application fees that we're able to operate in that manner. So as far as putting up signboards, advertising businesses, you can put up signboards. But you cannot like put the price of what your product is. If you look at today, you'll see that Kensington has signs up saying, this is the grand opening of our restaurant. Now that's allowable, but if they were to put, oh, we have cakes for $30, now that's not allowable in zoning regulations. So yes, we can put up signs, with regard to businesses. They would fall under a temporary use sign. They usually go for 3 months first, and then if all of, after inspection from zoning and everything is okay, you can renew for another 6 months. So, you know, we want to make sure also that we're not going to let go of enforcement, and, you know, then it'll be very chaotic out there.
That's all great to hear. Administrator, you did a great job today. I know that we had questions going in all different directions, and we're really looking forward to continuing this relationship from the private sector. And we know that, you know, the zoning board is full of a lot of representatives from the private sector already. So thank you for helping prioritize that shift, so that there is private sector input that's happening for the zoning board, and you yourself are recently coming from the private sector, so we're very excited about your appointment, and continuing to work together to push the CNMI in a way, as you had mentioned in your vision, for sustainable development, for practices that keep everybody accountable for what they're doing and their impact on the community, as well as being able to promote business. So thank you so much for joining us today. All right, we are going to go ahead and then move on to our next presentation. We have the Commissioner of the CNMI Public School System, Dr. Alfred, as well as Dr. Bobby Cruz. They are joining us here today to give some updates about PSS. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Ada and Dr. Cruz. I know that I have my spotlight video on Dr. Ada, but Dr. Cruz, if you would like to go ahead and share your screen, I believe you have a presentation today.
All right, great, Maxine, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So our topic today is about opening of the school. And so with the reopening guide, you know, as a system, we have been really ready. We prepared for a full remote learning. We prepared for a hybrid remote on-site learning. We prepared a partial reopening method, and the last one was the full reopening. So we had 4 different plans that in any way that the COVID-19 will shift us, or we're paying attention to the situational awareness of the community. We have all of these guidelines as we prepare for the reopening. So I just want to briefly talk about the reimagining, re-engage, and reopening of the school. You know, if you really think about it, I graduated in 1986, and I know someone else who graduated in 1987, right? So that's about 30 years ago. And we were sitting around just reimagining when we talked about 2010, 2020, 2030 even. We really did not have an imagination of how education would look like. We did know that technology was going to play a part, but wow, technology has really taken us through that wave of change of reimagining education. So we are here now at 2020, and so we are trying to figure out how to re-engage teaching and learning. And with re-engaging teaching and learning, you know, now we have to shift towards priority standards. There's Common Core standard, but then now there's priority standards. Now, priority standards are the ones that we feel are what is more meaningful and what our students can will learn and be able to use when they get out of when they graduate. And so our mission is about helping our students that by the time they get out of the public school system, they become independent and global contributing members of society. So when you think about global, independent thinking community members in our society, we're here. The coronavirus has really set that precedence for us. So we are looking at it with a silver lining on the positive side, that perhaps this was what we need for all of us to shift into, because we were moving towards that direction, but not fully. So it's becoming like 100%. And so lastly, we are reopening. We are reopening on September 8th. And Mr. Bobby Cruz will talk more in detail about that. All the schools right now, we are preparing with PPEs, retrofitting the classrooms, following the COVID-19 protocols that we have DPW, CHCC, and the task force coming into all the schools doing inspection and making sure that our students, our classrooms are all set. With that said, I'd just like to say that we want to tell the community and inform the community that we are strictly following the guideline of the COVID-19. And I really would like everyone to understand and know that we are taking precautionary measures, and the first and the foremost thing is safety. Safety over anything. So just as of yesterday, we were developing a COVID-19 drill. There's fire drill, there's earthquake drill. Well, guess what? We need to come up with a COVID-19 drill, because when it happens at our school, how are we going to, what procedures are we going to follow? So just to give you that update. So another moving target variable. With that said, I'm going to yield to Mr. Bobby Cruz, and he will give us our presentation. Go ahead, Dr. Cruz, over.
Yeah, so I just want to first begin by saying Hafide and Tirwami to all of our chamber members. I want to thank the executive director for creating this virtual space for us to be able to engage with one another. And on behalf of our entire PSS family, we really appreciate the opportunity to engage with y'all this morning. You're major stakeholders in our community, so reaching out to you helps us assure the public that the safety and education of the children that we serve remain our top priority. As the commissioner mentioned, we continue to work very closely with the COVID-19 task force and the governor to meet these priorities. So educating the 10,000 students in our charge is PSS's responsibility, but really it's our entire community's responsibility. Our teachers and school staff have been very busy at work to prepare for the opening of the school year. And so we want our students to be comfortable with this remote learning framework. So we're very excited to officially welcome the students back on September 8th. And as I go through this presentation, hopefully it will give you all an understanding of our plan, specific to the steps that we're going to take as we begin this school year. So I want to begin by playing a short video for you all. It's a video that we prepared for the community. It's a short video, and so I'll go ahead and share that video now.
Hafade and Tirowami, parents and guardians. On behalf of the entire PSS family and the State Board of Education, I want to assure you that your child's safety and education are our top priorities. We are here to help students adapt to the new realities. Each of the 10,000 students in our care matter deeply to us. With that said, we want our students to be self-aware and manage their emotions in this pandemic. We want to build and nurture trust as we connect and re-engage. We are very excited to welcome students back. In this short video, you'll get a brief look at what your child's learning experience will be as we reimagine, re-engage, and reopen the new school year on September 8, 2020.
The CNMI public school system fully recognizes the challenges COVID-19 has presented for our students and their families. Your child's education, safety, and well-being is our #1 priority. Therefore, the primary mode of instruction will take place through remote learning.
Remote learning provides an opportunity for students and teachers to remain connected and engaged with the content while working in different locations. In remote learning, information is provided online with the use of technology for both synchronous and asynchronous learning.
In synchronous learning, your child will participate in online video conferencing and live classroom lessons via Blackboard Collaborate. These virtual sessions will provide your child with real-time interaction with teachers and classmates.
Your child will also participate in an asynchronous experience where teaching materials are posted online and learners complete activities on their own. Your child's teacher has created an engaging virtual space that includes discussion boards, online activities, and assessments to support your child's education.
Students will have access to these online learning opportunities so they can continue learning remotely outside of school. While the general population of students will be provided instruction online using Blackboard, opportunities to connect face-to-face with teachers will be provided for students with unique needs.
Schools have been working hard to prepare campuses according to guidelines and safety measure protocols from the CDC and the COVID-19 task force. To keep our students and their families safe, schools will do temperature screenings at campus entrances and deep cleaning and sanitizing of all classrooms and buildings. Schools will also provide sanitizers and hand washing stations, use visual markers for social distancing, and require face masks to be worn at all times.
When school begins in September, teachers will focus on social-emotional learning to help students manage their stress to ensure all children succeed in their lessons. Lessons will be delivered according to CNMI PSS priority standards to ensure depth of instruction.
The month of September will be dedicated to helping your child get oriented with remote learning. At the orientation, students and families will meet with teachers and administrators in small groups to discuss your child's needs for support. For special education, meetings that were scheduled during the time of closure will be rescheduled.
During the orientation, your child will learn to use Blackboard for remote learning. Your child's teacher will also communicate with you regarding class schedules and provide learning resources for your child to use at home.
We are committed to helping students who don't have access to technology. Eligible students will be given a laptop and a Wi-Fi device so they can access the internet and complete remote learning at home.
The public school system fully acknowledges the challenges associated with this significant change in learning for our students, and we are committed to helping your child succeed. Despite COVID-19 and the obstacles it has presented, this is truly an exciting opportunity for your child to learn using technology.
We are excited to take your child on this journey to remote learning. We commend you for your commitment to your child's education. Your PSS family is here to support you. Together, we can overcome these challenges and give our children the education they deserve while ensuring their safety and well-being.
For more information, please check out the CNMI PSS Facebook page at facebook.com/CNMI PSS. All right. So that short video helps to highlight the plans that we have in place. And we wanted to create that video so that they can start to understand what this new remote learning framework is going to be. And so continuing along with the presentation, the impetus of our work really is driven by these questions. How can schools open to ensure optimal safety of students, staff, and the entire community? And also, how can schools best prepare students and parents to make the shift to remote learning? As we know, these are not easy questions to answer, and so we've been engrossed in trying to figure out a solution in the absence of really any clear roadmap or any clear trend data to help guide our decisions. We've made sure that we want to make sure that student safety and continuous learning is continue to be our top priorities. So here here's just an overview of some of our timelines. You're only seeing the work that we've done in August and September, but this work actually began as soon as the pandemic hit the Marianas. We had already started planning to leverage the full force of our federal funding to be able to use those federal funding sources to prepare to roll out remote learning and shore up our school campuses. We had a cohort of trainers learn how to use the learning management system. And between August 3rd and August 26th, our entire instructional staff of the public school system have been engrossed in learning how to use Blackboard to facilitate online instruction. As you can imagine, this was not an easy shift when you think about the typical brick and mortar forms of instruction and that physical engagement that most of our teachers are trained to provide, and then now asking them to make this shift to remote learning. It was significant second order change. And to be quite honest, we were very fearful that it would not take off. But I'm very glad to share with you all that 4 weeks of training have been positive. We have teachers building courses. And so I just, for those of you who know classroom teachers, we all do, please commend them, because our classroom teachers have just done such an extraordinary job using the why, the why behind why they serve as educational professionals to really help them overcome the many hurdles that accompany this shift to remote learning. Now, school will officially begin on September 8th. I'll share some more information about what that means, because when we say school begins, it's not going to be the traditional rollout as we all are used to. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about between September 8th and September 30th, the period of time that we're calling our wellness phase, which families, and really getting everyone set to transition to this remote form of instruction. So some of the questions that you're probably asking yourself is, oh, so why remote learning? Well, it's to allow for educational continuity while also maintaining optimal safety for our students and staff. There have been, there's a number of school districts throughout the US that kind of mirror our demographic, and everyone is sort of doing something different. It really isn't consistent. And so we've had schools open up, and then we've had schools close down because there are cases. I think when we look at Guam, for example, that provides a good example of what can happen. So we've decided to err on the side of caution. And so that really is why remote learning will be our primary form of instruction. And I say this though, and I think I have to clarify that it's going to be our primary mode of instruction based on the current EO. Now, we do fully recognize that this remote form of instruction is not ideal for the general population. So we fully intend to move into a hybrid framework and then eventually return to normal. And again, those plans, as the commissioner mentioned, we are prepared for those scenarios. And so those plans will be enacted based on how the condition of the CNMI changes. So what is remote learning? Really, it's learning outside of the school campuses. And so for most of our students, they'll be learning from home. In some cases, they'll be learning from the workplace of their parents. They'll be going over to their cousin's house. And so any learning that's happening outside of the school ground is what we're deeming remote learning. The instructional approach that will guide our remote learning framework will be approach, which really means individual pacing. So in an asynchronous environment, it's very similar to what's happening now, where using Zoom, for example, we are engaging live. And so the students will use a specific tool within Blackboard Learn to be able to do this sort of engagement. They will engage live with their teachers on a regular basis. In addition to that, there's also going to be, synchronous. So this experience is a synchronous experience. In addition to that synchronous live experience, on a regular basis with their teacher, they're also engaged in an asynchronous form of instruction where the teachers will already have created a structure which within their virtual classroom spaces that will include access to content, discussion boards, tasks and assessments. And so the students will complete that work independently. And again, they will have opportunities to engage with their teacher synchronously, real time, in a live virtual environment such as this. So again, just more information. So what will the virtual classroom look like? Well, we're using the Blackboard classroom. It's the reason why we're using Blackboard is because of data security and privacy. We cannot allow the teachers to use just any platform that they want because FERPA, we need to make sure that the student personally identifiable information is protected. And so we have integrated our student information system with our Blackboard learning management system for optimal security. So that way the student data is protected. We've seen what other districts did where they transitioned to a remote form of instruction and allowed teachers to use whatever educational apps and resources that they chose. And there was a lot of FERPA violations. So we wanted to make sure that we rolled this out in a way that was going to protect data privacy and security, but also choose the right platform that was going to allow for that was built specifically for online engagement. So how will the students connect with their teachers and peers? Well, within the Blackboard Learn platform, there's a really cool tool called Blackboard Collaborate. And I like to say that it's Zoom, but on steroids. So it's similar to this experience, but you have breakout rooms, and there's a number of different things you can do within those breakout rooms. There's closed captioning features that you can integrate for the purpose of accessibility. There is a virtual whiteboard. You can contain within that virtual space so that in case connectivity is lagging, the students still don't get the break in the feed like you might be experiencing here. And then there's just a wealth of different engagement tools, polling tools, quizzing tools. So those tools are embedded within each teacher's virtual classroom. And then moving along, so what if a student needs access to technology? This was a big thing. I mean, we have parents who are saying, you know, oh my goodness, like my kid, like we don't have the resources to be able to participate in remote learning. We don't have a laptop, we don't have MiFi devices. Based on the preliminary surveying that the public school did with its students and families, we can account for about 20% of our student population that will need this support. So we leverage our federal funding to be able to procure 5,000 additional laptop devices that are on its way. In the meantime, we are doing an inventory of our current technology that we have available at the schools, and we have a framework in place to be able to disseminate these devices to our students and families that need it. We also have procured MiFi devices, and this is going to ensure that the students and families have connectivity at home. So we're making sure that we have that in place. We can't expect remote learning to happen and not give our students and our eligible students and families access to these technology resources. I have to be, clear that not every student will get a laptop and MiFi device. We don't have enough to be able to give everyone that. So what we're putting together some guidelines to be able to determine those families that really need it, and our school administrators are overseeing that at their school level. They know the students and families best, so they're working that out. And then another question is, what if a student needs or requires face-to-face support? I updated this bullet and I said contingent upon the EO, because obviously the governor's executive orders dictate the plans that we make. So we always have to shift based on the executive orders. With that said, though, we're in constant communication with the COVID-19 task force, and the governor and the COVID-19 task force have been extraordinarily helpful in that partnership. But there may be students, for example, who don't have power. And while that's a very small portion of our population, you can't engage in remote learning if you don't have power at home. Doesn't matter how many laptop devices or MiFi devices we give. So we have to consider supports to help those students who may have that need. Additionally, we have our students with who really require support and intervention by law, their IEPs, that physical form of instruction. So we need to operationalize and the face-to-face support for these students in a way that does align with the executive orders and is safe for the students and also the PSS staff. We also have students who are in need of significant reading and math intervention and students who also have extenuating circumstances. So we know that there are already significant learning gaps that really stem back all the way from Super Typhoon Sotalor. Our children in the CNMI, I feel terrible because going back to Super Typhoon Sotalor, our kids, there's been a lot of learning loss from there. So Super Typhoon Sotalor to U2 and then now this global pandemic, there's been a lot of learning loss. So we want to make sure that we do our best mitigate learning. So we have designed a framework, and again, contingent upon the EO, to be able to provide these interventions and supports to our students who really need that academic support the most. So now focusing, Miss Maxine, am I okay on time? I know you gave us 15 minutes and you're particular about time, so I just want to make sure that I'm okay.
I think that you're doing a great job. You're covering so many of the questions that just go ahead and keep going.
Okay, wonderful. So wellness and readiness. In the month of September, we need to focus on family orientations and the transition to the online environment. And so, as many of you know, when you were students in school, you came into the classroom, and that first week of instruction is about really getting the students into those instructional routines, having them understand the course requirements, what are the classroom rules and procedures. Well, we're doing the same thing, but because this is a significant shift from the traditional forms of instruction, it's going to take more time. Then you add in the restrictions of social distancing and those important safety precautions that we need to put in place. It's really going to take a lot more time. So in the month of September, between September 8th and September 30th, our school administrators are going to be rolling out a schedule to be able to bring in students and their families in cohorts, keeping those numbers under 10. And again, all of this is contingent upon the EO. So we're really working closely with the governor to get the thumbs up on being able to execute this framework. And in those orientations, the students and families will have that opportunity to engage with the teacher to what is remote learning going to be like for me? What is our daily schedule, the online portal? What are my rights as a student? Where do I go if I need support? And so because this is a major shift in instructional practice, we need to have this orientation, getting students the support that they need. So that is what we're calling our wellness and readiness phase. And so as I mentioned earlier, it's, we want to reestablish routine, structured time, and reconnect with our students. I want to share, and the commissioner knows this, we had a student focus group, and it was a very emotional experience. I think it was very emotional for me as an educator, because I was expecting our students to be talking from a position of fear and not wanting to come back to school, but our kids are desperate to engage in whatever way with their teachers that they trust, with their peers. And students said things like, we know it's not going to be perfect, but we just want to go back to school. So this framework is going to allow us to get school up and running, and we have every excuse to push it back, but the commissioner has said, no, we need to make sure that the kids get access to their teachers and we can start learning right away. So just some more information about reopening. So in the event, again, this is contingent upon the EO, we really ideally like to operationalize a form of face-to-face support, of course, with a bulk of the population really continuing to attend virtually. But for the small percentage of the population that I mentioned before, our students without power, our students who have whose IEPs require that they get this physical support, and then our students who are in need of significant intervention. We are putting in place safety precautions so that when they access our school campuses, they're safe. They're in a safe environment. So adhering to the CDC guidelines, ensuring that there is working closely with the COVID-19 task force to do a walkthrough. And the commissioner piloted a program this summer at Cagman Elementary School to test whether these safety measures would be in place. And so he can touch more upon that, but it was very successful. And it was successful with our elementary kids. So that was exciting to know that this was possible. And then just a little more, we really need to spend some time reconnecting with our families. We really have been out of touch since March of last year. And so that this wellness in September, where with their school teachers, it's going to be a great opportunity to reconnect with our families. And so we're going to go over safety measures and protocols, discuss student needs and their struggles and different ways that we can provide support, and share some student expectations. And then understand synchronous and asynchronous forms of instruction. Those words I think are becoming more and more common, but prior to the month of August, I think that those words seem very scary. Those aren't words that we use every day. So our kids will have to learn the academic language so that they know that it relates to what it is that they're doing. And then just some final thoughts. So there's a lot of things that we have been considering. Rolling out a new form of instruction through Blackboard really has us own practices or policies. So really making sure that the online platform where the student information is secure. Online safety is a top priority. Making sure that we have the procedures in place to help students understand how to navigate the courses, assignments, and tools. Ensuring that all of our activities are FERPA compliant. And so our teachers are very familiar with what they can and cannot do in the physical setting. But in the virtual setting, because it's all new, there's a lot of questions about, can I ask a student to turn on their camera? And so it seems like a common sense thing, and the answer seems to be yes, but in actuality it's no. You can't force a kid to turn on their camera. So those details, we have already started training with our school staff so that they understand how the FERPA regulations that they are familiar with in a traditional classroom, how those regulations translate into the online learning environment. And then of course, we know that students are students, and so we need to make sure we establish norms for optimal decorum and respect. So that's some information that we will be covering. And then Maxine, I'll end it here. Social emotional support is going to be pivotal. I know that this is a new thing for the community, but we have so much trauma, trauma that stems all the way back to Super Typhoon Sotalor. And we really haven't had an opportunity as a system to deal with that. And now in light of COVID-19, we are starting the school year off with staff that have trauma that they're dealing with related to this professional transition and new mode of learning. Also trauma related to their own home environment. We have families that are dealing with this, and we have students that are dealing with this. We had a parent focus group where we talked about trauma, and it was really moving. I didn't expect parents to be crying when we asked them questions about how are they feeling, and so our parents are also dealing with this trauma. So the month of September, we're just going to be upfront. While content is, while academic content is important, the research is clear that none of that is accessible until you address the affective domain, those non-cognitive factors, such as the student's emotional well-being, the staff's well-being, in order for them to perform, both the staff and the students and families. So we will focus on mental health. We actually already have a conference that's ongoing with our teachers, and the results have been really positive. So the healing has already begun for our teachers, and more importantly, they're also learning strategies for how to start the healing process with their students. And so I will stop the presentation, and I will open it up for questions for me and Dr. Ada.
Wow, I'm just completely blown away myself. Thank you so much, Dr. Cruz and Commissioner Ada, for all of the hard work that you've been doing on behalf of the students of the Commonwealth. You covered most of the questions throughout your presentation because you were so thorough. So really thank you for your devotion to our students, to their mental well-being. I know that it's been very difficult to take an entire sector like our public education and try to within 6 months find a way to completely revitalize it in a way that really honors students. And you've already touched on it. It's very difficult for families to be able to adapt, to make sure their children are receiving that form of education. So thank you for all of the hard work that you're doing. We did have 2 questions that came up. Dr. Cruz, I know that you touched a lot about, depending on the EO at any certain time, that's kind of what will lead the community and PSS and what you can adapt and do. Based on the current EO in your timeline, do you have this question comes to back, you were so thorough in your original presentation, but do you have any plans for sports and extracurricular activities, re-engaging? I know that you're focusing on mental health, you're going to tap back with learning, but is there an estimated timeline of when you think that those extracurriculars could come back?
May I? I know you asked Dr. Cruz, but just wanted to let the public know that all of the activities that we're doing are low or no contact activities. So our athletic director, Mr. Nick Gross, is working hard, and he's doing his own research on what kind of sports do we need. We will be starting this year. So from what the last time we spoke, he is going to implement badminton. Okay, so it's not a popular sport, but he has got that all down packed, trying to set up for, in case they do the face-to-face, would they ever allow? Or if they do allow, then he already has something in a lesson in place. So most of the activities will be low contact or no contact.
Yeah, and if I can just add, one of the things that was really important to our commissioner is that we try to mimic as closely as possible the experience that our students would have as if we were traditionally operating. And so within the Blackboard Learn management system, it won't only house their virtual classrooms, but it will also make available virtual spaces for our students to engage in club activities. So RWDC, our real world design folks, will still be able to continue as a club. National Honor Society. So we've created a framework so that the students will still be able to participate. Our Glee Club, we still fully intend to allow the kids to engage in those extracurricular activities through virtual means. So it may not speak specifically to physical education, but there are opportunities for some extracurricular activities through the virtual learning environment, and our school principals will be and school teachers will be leading that effort.
Thank you both so much for addressing that question. And the last question that I'm seeing is that there are rumors that there are petitions going around specifically from the private school system pushing, and their parents pushing for face-to-face learning. Do you have any thoughts on that necessarily from the private sector
side? First of all, there's an executive order that we need, everybody has to follow, right? It's a communal issue, it's a communal work, everybody has to cooperate. So with the last executive order, we were informed that face-to-face is not advisable at this time. So we are really working around that as much as possible. We're asking for 10 or less. We're asking the COVID task force to allow us to do 10 or less to do the orientation with our parents, so that we can roll out with our orientation. So that's that. With the private schools, they are a smaller group, and they are easier to trace back, right? And so whatever rumor is, they have to follow the executive order first. So not that I'm aware of. I think I know they did go online 100% remote. So. And everyone's challenged because, in the K to third level, we are, the social development piece, that is key for learning. And so we're in this pandemic that says no social, to keep the social distancing, right? And it's, we have to be creative in the virtual. All right, how do we do a big hug? Okay, everybody just get on your computer and stretch your arm, and we're having a big hug. Okay, so that's the kind of creativity that teachers have to come up with. But we are getting guidance from some of the technical assistants from schools and companies from NASSP, National Association of Elementary School Principals. There's a lot of resource education week, ASCD. So we're busy. We're also busy trying to figure this out because no one has this packed down. None of the schools in the States have it packed down. And if I'm looking at the pattern across the US, all the schools that opened had to close in short time, including colleges and universities. So if we take it down to Hawaii and Guam, same pattern again. So I'm thinking, wow, but for us, we are safe. We don't have the same numbers that they have. So I'm confident that we're gonna be okay. Go ahead, Dr. Cruz, you want to add to that?
Well, that's a tricky question. I don't have an opinion about the petitions. I will say that the public school system is different than the private schools because we serve 10,000 students and we have 1,000 staff, and so that makes the demographic that we are working with a bit more challenging. So I know that for the commissioner has said we have two priorities: optimal learning and optimal safety. And how do we make sure that that continues? And so our plans have been focused on that. And again, the commissioner is fully aware that this is not the optimal learning environment for our general population. So we have every intention to move into a hybrid framework and then to going back to normal. Again, all of that is contingent upon the EO. So we just continue to do our best and use those two guiding principles to drive our decisions. As I mentioned earlier, there's no real national trend. There's no real trend data to really give us the confidence that we need to make sure that when we reopen physically that we're going to be fine, despite being a small island, despite not having many instances of community spread. There just there just isn't a lot of confidence that you can put towards that data. Data that we see in the span of 3-6 months, it's just not reliable data, in my opinion. So we continue to use those two guiding principles: optimal safety, and while allowing for education to continue. And I say that, and also fully recognizing that our situation is different from the private schools. So I want to acknowledge that. And the private schools, we have an amazing representative in Dr. G. So whatever effort they are leading, I'm sure that there is a sound rationale for that as well. So that's all I have to share on that.
Thank you so much. And thank you both for joining us today to just to provide these updates. And I know that we're going to be circulating this video through the membership afterwards. So I can't imagine that anybody would watch this presentation and not have full faith in everything that PSS is doing right now. So thank you for all of the energy that you've been putting in for the last few months to make sure that you are both optimizing safety and education. Thank you so much for also joining us today and for answering the tough questions.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so we are moving on to our final presentation. It is with the CNMI Department of Commerce, specifically within the Central Statistics Division. We are going to have Director Andrew here join us, along with Mr. Will Maui, who is going to give us an update on the prevailing wage survey. So thank you so much for joining us today, Director and Mr. Maui.
Thank you, Maxine. Thank you, Velma and the Saipan Chamber of Commerce organization for allowing us to share some updates of the 2020 prevailing wage with you and everyone else joining us this morning in this meeting. And so I want to quickly take the opportunity to say thank you to all our business partners and employers, as well as the private public sector agencies, on behalf of our Secretary of Commerce and our prevailing wage team, for putting in some time and setting from their busy schedule during this pandemic to log on to the portal and give us their information for the prevailing wage report. That said, I want to let you all know that the data collection has been done. It's complete. Data processing is complete, and that the governor has submitted the CW1 report to the U.S. Department of Labor on August 18th, and that we're just now waiting for our folks at the U.S. Department of Labor to publish that report, and that employers and businesses can use that report as soon as it's published from the U.S. Department of Labor side. And then aside from the CW1 report, we're working to finalize the other portion of that report, the survey documentation part, that will be used by employers for H visa and firm determination and approval process. That should be coming out in the next few days, a week's time frame. And once we're done with that, we just upload it from our side, and we'll let everyone know that that report is up and available for everyone to use. And I'll go through some of the updates again, and I'll switch it over to Will to share a little bit of the findings of the survey with you and not take up too much time. It's almost lunchtime. So for those of us out there, the survey data collection period was a month. It was from June 11th to July 10th. And the survey reference period was the month of January. And so the scope of the survey was we wanted everyone to take the survey, including the government agencies. And as a result of the survey, when we closed the data collection on July 10th, there were a total of 711 employers and businesses who registered on the data collection portal that we set up. Of the 711, 631 were employers who reported employee data. And with the 631 employers, they reported 14,534 total number of employees. So that's what we captured in the survey this year. Of the 14,534 employees, the survey results showed us 484 total detailed standard occupational code classification titles. That's sort of a quick rundown of what we have for the prevailing wage survey and where we're at this moment, at this time. For those of us that are here with us and those that are listening in somewhere else, the CNMI data collection is ongoing. The portal is still on because we wanted to continuously prepare for next year's round of survey. And those of us that weren't able to take part in the 2020 prevailing wage, they can log on and visit the CNMI data.commerce.gov.mp. That's the portal. And then just register, and it's a very simple process. We just want you to register, indicate the number of employees you have, and that we have your contact information. So next year, we'll try to start the survey earlier next year, and that we have everyone's information with us to quickly begin the data collection next year. I think I'll turn it over to Will. Will just give us a little bit of the findings that might be interesting to us today. Thank you, Maxine.
Maxine, can I share screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So, so as the director had already said, the data collection and the most important part of the survey was to get those prevailing wages for the occupations that we are in the economy, new set of wage rates associated with those occupations sent to USIS. So that's done. But when we collect data, we also collect some additional variables there that we then use to profile the labor force in the economy. So the report that the director was alluding to that we're working on and we'll be putting up on the website within the next few days or a week's time would be that report, which you've seen in the previous surveys that will show, okay, so we have the wage rates. What are those rates for the entire CNMI, for example, and then what is it for general groups, right? So if I can just scroll through, I'm just using my screen, so let me just type that one now. I'll just scroll through. I didn't prepare a PowerPoint. I'm just using a Word document that's going to be eventually published out. But I'll just highlight a few, and then you will see if you ask a question on a specific topic I can go into. So if we look at this table here, which would be table 4 on the published report when it comes out, it shows the wage rates. No, so if you look at The total employers that were used, actually there was, I think we said 631, but not all employers' data was useful, so we had to eliminate the ones that we couldn't really use. So 621 is the number that we're using for the, and then 14,342, right? And those, so you see from there quickly, okay, so those are the numbers that we used in generating the weights, the average wages that were used in the study. And on the aggregate, you see that the average wage for the CNMI as a whole mean is 1287 and then 925 median. And then, so these tables are just breaking it down by citizenship. So if you look, okay, generally US citizenships have a higher wage rate than the non-US citizens employees, for example. If I go to the some of the visa ones, again, these are based on the survey, right? So based on the reported figure. So 61% of the employees that were reported on US citizens, and then the breakdown there, you see CW1's about 26%, 9% green card, and then 3% are other visa categories. If you look at the table here, again, you will see wage rates based on those categories. So US citizens and wage rates, and then comparing them to the overall wage rates that you see them here. So again, in the interest of time, I'm just previewing what would be on the report, and then if it's necessary for a future time, we could probably have a little more time that we can go over this and entertain more questions. More than half were males, and then wage rates, females wage rates higher than male wage rates in CNMI, which is a good one or an interesting one. So things of that nature. Here's one that perhaps the chamber has already done their survey. So that we put a question in the questionnaire that allowed us to make a distinction of those workers who were working. Remember, the survey reference period was January, but we were collecting data in July. So we asked that the employer report wages for January, but in addition, tell us of those that they reported in January, how many were laid off and what were the reasons for the layoff. So this chart just shows that a finding that, okay, 19% of those who were employed in January were no longer employed in July, and 13% or 14% actually of that was laid off COVID-related reason. No? And then other reasons are 5%. There's a table that shows those and shows the wage rate as well. So those who were laid off generally had a lower wage rate than those who were kept on board. The other one that may be of interest, that because again, the chamber has already did their own survey within the membership or within the business community. So we asked the question about how many hours the workers worked at the week in which they filled out the survey, which would be in end of June to early July. And you see that, yeah, a lot of, if you just look at here down, right, you see that over half was working less than full time or less than 40 hours. And then these are the percentages of employers that were reporting employees that work for 40 hours, for example, was only 64%. Then 45 of all employers reported, less than 40, and then just give you some idea of the utilization of the workforce employment in the CNMI. So again, I think I'll just stop it at this point, and if there's questions, I will move into the particular slide that might answer the question. Otherwise, give us a week and it'll be on the website and you can download it. So I'll
Thank you
open
so
for
much.
questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Maui. And for Director Andrew as well. I have not received any questions so far. The only thing I did receive from President Palacios was just the expression of gratitude. We're always so grateful that the Central Statistics Division is willing to take on these projects and also willing to update the membership with the current findings and their current initiatives. So just to summarize what was said today is that the prevailing wage has already been sent to the National Prevailing Wage Center for approval. There are initial findings that we have here that Mr. Maui is presenting that are very, very interesting, and we can look forward to their final reporting in the next few days, whenever it could potentially be published, next few days, next few weeks, here coming up soon. Are there any other updates that you would like to provide, either Mr. Maui about specifically the prevailing wage report or Director Andrew?
Well, I think we've pretty much covered the update for 2020 prevailing wage at this point in time during our discussions today. But one important point is to let everyone know, or those who weren't able to log on and register and provide data and take part in the 2020 prevailing wage, that we would like for them to log on to the CNMI data.commerce.gov.mp and register anytime. The sooner they do it, the better. And this goes to everyone, those who have employees and the employers who don't have employees, including self-employed employed people. So that we have a comprehensive list of businesses we can quickly reach out to them in 2021 round of survey, that we can have the report published in time next year. I think that's pretty much it.
That sounds great, Director. I do have one final question. Has there been an estimated timeline that the National Prevailing Wage Center has given the CNMI of when they would accept the published report, or at least be willing to accept the new data numbers? I know that we have a lot of members that have been frustrated about not knowing what the wage amounts are because they are coming either from Guam or OES.
So we haven't heard back from them as to when exactly they're going to publish the report, but I have just recently sent another follow-up this morning, and it's sort of a little bit on the pushy side of things to inquire and to get them to publish and to let us know. So we hope to hear from them soon.
Well, thank you so much for that update. Thank you for showing us some of the preliminary information, which I agree is very interesting, and is way more comprehensive than the survey that the Chamber did a few months ago, kind of as a touch point. So thank you again for all of the work that you're doing to make sure that we have accurate data in the CNMI so we can truly understand what's happening for our business sector, and private sector and the public sector all around, just having to do with employment. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for always being willing to join us. We know that you're working very hard on all of our behalfs.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
And so with that, we'll go ahead and conclude today's meeting. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us, for thanking all of our speakers. And we will be publishing this round of the GMM on our YouTube and sending that out to the membership. So thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your week.